Hi, I'm Manga Comment, and let's talk about Spider-Man.
I want Spider-Man!
And Kotaku.
Don't make me come down there, you punk.
Yeah, Kotaku wrote an article about Spider-Man, so let's give a little backstory, shall we? Well, since I've been a fan of the latest Spider-Man video game, and I'm currently working on a video talking about it, so let's talk about something that caught my attention. Basically, there's an article that's titled, Spider-Man's take on police feels out of touch.
Oh, excellent.
I'm Manga Comment, and let's get right into this. Let's swing into action. Ugh.
Spider-Man has taken on his share of street thugs and supervillains, sometimes teaming up with the police to face down foes and rescue the people of New York. While Spider-Man on PS4 undoubtedly shows Spidey's allegiance to his community, it also casts him as a big fan of police and their tactics that sometimes conflict with that civic mindset. From cheesy detective impressions to Riker's prison beatdowns, Spider-Man's uncomplicated approach to crime clashes with the reality of day-to-day life.
You're asking for reality in a video game where you fight against a guy who's in a giant rhino suit, and someone who's basically pure electricity, and you want there to be reality in it. I think reality took a black eye a while ago with this game. But, right out of the gate, I had to question if you even actually played the game. Because guess what? At the beginning of the game, we actually see corrupt cops who are working for Wilson Fisk.
Heads up, boss.
In addition, Spider-Man and Captain Yuri actually discuss how there could be an inside job with police towers being sabotaged.
They tell me someone sabotaged the central server, and now all the towers are offline.
Inside job?
Maybe.
Heck, there's even a mission of a police officer saying that he doesn't trust the webhead.
Jameson's right. You put on a big show, but all you do is leave a mess behind for everyone else.
And even then, if you listen to the game, you'll hear that the police are actually used to shoot at Spidey at multiple times before the game's events. Alright, this is me questioning if you actually paid attention to what's happening in the game. Then again, what do I expect from an article from Kotaku?
One of the earliest things you do in Spider-Man is go around activating security towers made by Oscorp but used by the NYPD that make it easier for Spider-Man to track crimes as they happen. Narratively, these towers allow the police to better survey citizens. They'll also give Spider-Man access to police frequencies. They're always listening, giving out calls to car chases and telling the player about break-in attempts that Spider-Man can thwart before the crime occurs. The uncritical use of these powers struck some players, especially those who live in New York, as odd.
Do you come with a translation button?
Which is why J. Jonah Jameson calls it out in the game.
Well, remember my warnings about the downright Orwellian crime monitoring system the city was installing. Well, it's not operating. Why, you ask? Because someone came to their senses and realized they'd be violating civil liberties? Wrong! Because those incompetent bureaucrats built a network that crashes more often than a wino driving a bumper car, so your tax dollars got wasted, and there's nothing to show for it. Which is about as close as you get to a happy ending in the real world, kids.
In addition, this is just something that the game does in order for you to actually, build the map.
An NYU Game Center scholar took to Twitter to note similarities between these towers and the real-world NYC security cameras that IBM recently used to make skin color profiling technology.
Okay. As you said, the towers are made by Oscorp. You do know that Oscorp is essentially one of the worst corporations in the Spideyverse, right? In some iterations of the webhead, they were actually the cause for most of Spider-Man's supervillains. Towers by Oscorp could just be used in a similar manner in the game and just basically be like, hey, they're doing this. What is the point of even bringing this up?
Meanwhile, Spider-Man's enthusiasm for the police, from his stated love of busting drug deals to his cheesy Spider-Cop impersonation, had my co-worker Tim Rogers calling Spidey a narc. While I found Spider-Man to be a good-hearted and heroic as ever, he was also way more accepting of state power than I expected from a hero with a history of being wrongly maligned by the press and police.
Do I have to play the clips of Spider-Man fighting against corrupt police, or how legit cops have conspiracy theories that he works with Fisk? Actually, going back to the whole tower point from earlier, since that's the point of this entire paragraph, Spider-Man doesn't promote their use. In fact, he even states himself in the game that the stations make him uncomfortable due to the potential for abuse and civil rights violations. The webhead is only taking advantage of them. He utilizes the towers not to boost the effectiveness of the police towers or to increase surveillance, but so he can actually get more attentive hero work in. To accuse the game of supporting this technology kind of ignores the unique use as a seamless gameplay mechanic. Police are an impeachable group in Spider-Man. They show no real flaws and make no mistakes.
Fisk isn't going anywhere. I've got the missing drives.
Wait a sec. So you just happen to know where to find them? Maybe you and the Kingpin really are working together.
Wow, really? Steal him and bring him right back? You don't think I have better things to do with my time?
Uh-huh. Am I just gonna be playing these clips again and again?
They don't feel like an integrated part of the community. They pepper cutscenes and sometimes walk the streets, but mostly show up as an allied faction in procedurally generated crime events.
Did this person not know what an NPC is? The police aren't the main focus of the game. If they were, then they would defeat the purpose of the game since it's supposed to be a focus on Spider-Man and the events around him. Of course they're not going to be showing us a part of the community since the game isn't about that.
Even if Spider-Man's New York is largely fiction, it points towards a real place. New York is many things, but it is also the city of Eric Gardner, Stop and Frisk, and Palantir. Rikers isn't some fake prestige location like Arkham Asylum.
Real-life police are a complicated presence in New York, but in Spider-Man, they're a part of Spider-Man's vigilant quest for justice, rather than members of the community they're supposed to protect.
Hey, it's no secret that the NYPD of our world, and even more police officers, do have a record of corruption and misconduct. There's a thing you're missing here. People are willing to separate fiction from reality. People understand that not every piece of media needs to constantly hold a mirror to the real world. There's a reason why this is called escapist fiction. People need to be able to enjoy the superhero experience offered by this game while still being aware that there are bad actors in the NYPD. People can and the game shouldn't be held accountable for that.
This simplification extends to the game's portrayal of the criminal justice system as well. About halfway through the story, villains orchestrate a massive breakout at Rikers Island. It's treated as a crisis so dire that Spider-Man temporarily advances a search for a potentially pandemic-causing biological weapon to help the NYPD bust skulls and put down prisoner riots. Without fail, every convict is violent and aggressive.
Okay, I was kind of with you until that last bit.
No duh, because most of the convicts you fight are people who are arming themselves with stolen weapons, attacking the guards, and are trying to escape from the prison. That in of itself is a series of serious crimes that would denote that the convicts are supposed to be stopped by a Spider-Man. Especially since there's a mass of criminals that break into the city and actually do take over portions of it. The author then talks about the actual Rikers Island and brings up a guy who did suicide 2 years after he spent 3 years incarcerated. Which, why would you bring this up? It has nothing to do with the actual article.
This is starting to sound like a bad comic book plot. It gets worse.
In Spider-Man, these prisoners function as generic thugs to fight in waves. Despite being a superhero who is on the side of the people, when faced with this element of his city, Spider-Man forgets his allegiances and just enjoys beating the shit out of them.
Again, these people are criminals who are violent and arming themselves. They are attacking the guards and are trying to escape into the city. Not the non-violent ones who are more than likely waiting in jail, waiting on their minor crimes. However, guess what? If these minor criminals are amongst these criminals that you're talking about in the game, then guess what? The moment that they picked up weapons and start to attack police officers, that kind of kills your argument. Are you daft?
Spider-Man's simple presentation of crime and policing feels tone-deaf in the modern age. Then more and more people are growing aware of the class and race dynamics of policing. This doesn't suggest that the game needs to take a break every 10 minutes to info-dump real-world statistics, but games are released in the context of their time.
Okay, wow. Again, this is trying to make a game more political. While the game does have politics in it, that in no way means that the game should be related to the political landscape of its time. In addition, context of its time is something you can say about every source of media. If games want to talk about the current political landscape, they most certainly can. However, by that same token, games are not obligated to talk about the context of the time they came out, nor are they required to talk about the politics as well.
Spider-Man's portrayal of policing feels divorced from reality.
Oh, so now you're a detective, eh, Captain Emo?
to the point that it feels out of line with Spidey's comic book heritage. Comics often speak to what's happening in the real world. Captain America assumed the role of Nomad in 1974, the same year Richard Nixon resigned from office in the wake of the Watergate scandal. The X-Men have a history of allegorical representation of minoritized and persecuted groups. Spider-Man doesn't seem interested in reacting to the real world.
Here's the thing, you're forgetting that this is a video game. Not to sound dismissive, but that's the root of this. Games and comics aren't the same media. The point of games is to have fun, and gameplay is actually a main staple of it. Yes, storytelling can be a top priority with games, with gameplay coming second, but the opposite is also true. And unfortunately, Spider-Man for the PS4 is that time of game, where the gameplay comes first instead of the story. To give people the ability to web swing through New York, saving people from various crimes, and to beat up countless bad guys. Yes, it's subjectively fun. The problem with this article, though, is here that the game should focus more on the statement than to focus on the player's fun. And I get that the vibe that the article is criticizing are parts of the game that aid in making the game fun for more players, setting up to the towers that show where you can get quests, find various collectibles and Easter eggs, to beating up criminals who are breaking the law. These are facets that make the game more enticing for players and can make more enjoyable because they're giving them more gameplay types and giving them a chance to explore the city. That's the point. In addition, the game doesn't have to react to the real world. No game needs to do that. If you want to, then get on the case of Pong for not actually, representing ping pong correctly.
Instead of being part of the complex life of the city, this latest Spider-Man sees a black and white world of cops and robbers. He aids in state surveillance, standing unquestionably strong on an over-idealized caricature of the police. He's still friendly, but I don't know if he's part of the neighborhood now.
Fix my toilet and shut up! Let me explain something to you.
Actually, this brings up quite a few questions. What about side missions? The missions where you help a woman save her husband from blackmail, or help college students who are brainwashed? Or how about all the small parts of the game where you save people from car accidents? Heck, there's even missions where you help the entire city from scientific disasters.
That did it. No zombie pigeons.
And help a homeless man get back his pigeons.
Pigeon napping! Why? What possible purpose could there be for such aberrant behavior? Somewhere there's a giant web with these poor pigeons stuck in it, waiting to be devoured.
The fact you're only focusing on the police aspect, you're ignoring the other aspects of the game that prove Spidey's willing to help people out even on the smaller things. And that's the problem with this article. It's trying to paint the game in a weird light, and that the game isn't representational of actual life. Gee, did the guy in tights with spider powers swinging through the air not tip you off that it wasn't trying to do that? Look, the game does touch upon certain issues, like government corruption, pollution, and
pigeon napping!
But it doesn't need to force political... But that doesn't mean it has to force... But that doesn't mean it needs to force political narrative into it. Because here's the thing, if you force a political narrative into a game, more than often, it leads to massive debate, division, and even locking a game's relevance into the given year because you're tackling a certain subject. Spider-Man doesn't need to portray a realistic and imitate New York City Police Department to a T, and there's nothing wrong with that. Insomniac and Sony never set out to write the next political thriller or create a AAA title that exploits racial dynamics within law enforcement. All they did was want to make a fun game where you could swing around beating up bad guys, and they accomplished that. They don't need to force their opinions, they don't need to reflect the real world in any way, and they can change the world how they see fit. But I turn to you, my audience, what do you think? Let me know in the comments what you think about this. About the game, about the article, whatever. Among a comment, and remember to examine your fandom.
Now, if there's one thing I can't abide, it's egomaniacs who use the internet solely to draw attention to themselves.